So Python is an incredibly powerful interpreted programming language, and every so often people will ask this question. Should the Python shell replace the standard Unix shell that people use? And that's what the topic is for today. So, if you're new to the channel, remember to subscribe and ding the little bell icon down below because it'll really help the channel out. I'm trying to hit 1,000 subs by some point in the future, don't really have a date for it, but any help would be really appreciated. So now that's out of the way, let's get started. So what brought this video on was this Reddit post I found. So I don't typically read Reddit, but there are a couple of times when I do go to it, mainly just for the front page of r/Linux or r/ArchLinux. Occasionally things that are interesting will pop up on them. It's not often, but sometimes you get things like this. So this is from someone called Fight Tribalism, which is an amusing name for what they're suggesting. So while you can't do everything in Python shell that you can do in the CLI, what this person means by CLI is SHA or bash. They keep saying CLI for some reason, I can't work out why. So without invoking the bash shell from Python, here's why I think that the Python shell should eventually replace, I guess we'll use SHA. SHA probably fits better than the bash shell. So SHA is a collection of different programs and different tools with inconsistent interfaces, while Python is designed with readability in mind. The platform for both of them are designed, and the way that you interact between different programs are designed in both of them. In Python, the way you do it is through like function calls and passing around variables, and in shell or in bash shell, Z shell, anything like that, the way you do it is through pipes. And all of the libraries that you interact with in Python, outside of the standard library, are all designed by different people. So you've got the exact same problem here. So if you're going to say, here's my library to do string manipulation, that's your sed in shell. If you're doing things like, I don't know, managing your clipboard in Python, then you can use xclip for that in just when you're working with a random shell. There's not really any difference here. They're both designed by all different people who are coming from all different places, and you're going to have inconsistent interfaces, and they're all going to work within the same framework. There's not really any point being made here. So this next point is even worse. So Python is an actual programming language that you can use to develop apps, that you can use to make an Android app in Python, and you can't do that in shell. Another point that doesn't really matter, if you're going to be developing a Android app, you're not going to be using Python anyway, and you're not going to want to use shell. It's not shell in particular, especially like the bash shell, aren't programming languages that you want to write massive programs in. You want to do as minimal amount of work as possible, and that's just not a point that really matters at all. This next point as well, you can do statistical analysis, AI, game design. Once again, not really a point that has anything to do with what's being proposed here. So Python is also more cross-platform, while SHA is Nix specific. This is actually a valid point with some caveats. So Python is available on every system. Bash is also available on every system now because of Windows subsystem for Linux, and on macOS because macOS is a Unix-based system. Even though Python is available on Windows, you don't have this massive array of Python shell users on Windows, and you don't have them on macOS, and you don't have them on Linux, or FreeBSD, or any of the BSD variants, not just FreeBSD. I don't want to pick on that one in particular. It is available on all these systems, and people have been proposing this for as long as Python has been around, and people aren't using the Python shell because there's just nothing that they're really going to get out of it. And then here are some of the downsides of replacing shell with Python. So a lot of people already know and love shell, and for many people, Linux is the shell. This is a very valid point, and also one of the other things that is going to be a problem with doing this. If you use Python, you're going to have to worry about using Python bindings unless you're going to invoke the bash shell or Z shell or something like that from the program itself. If there are no Python bindings, then you're not going to really be able to do anything. And while that's not really a problem if you're working with xclip, you're working with sed, awk, any of these really popular programs, as soon as you work with something that's not popular, it might not have Python bindings. And this is one of the benefits and one of the downsides of working within the open source and free software community. When something like that gets released, it doesn't have to be supported at all by anything. It can just be some dude who just makes their thing and they just want to put it up online. Whereas if you're going to release some proprietary software, you're probably going to release it with everything you need with it, because there's not really any way to actually build that yourself. So if we were talking about proprietary software here, everything would be just released with bindings for whatever system it needs to work on. But because we're not, anything that someone doesn't think needs a Python binding for, they're just not going to worry about it. And that's a serious problem with this. So even if you do want to do everything with Python, you're still going to have to invoke external programs without using their Python bindings anyway. So you're not really gaining anything in that regard. There are a lot of shell tools that are not available as Python modules. That's basically the point I made. But you can presumably invoke them within Python. I haven't really done any system management with Python. I've seen a little bit of it, and from what I've seen, it's just way heftier than it needs to be, and you can just do everything you want to do with shell. And this third point here is that there are a lot of legacy scripts. So one in particular, this isn't a legacy script, this is something that I use now, is LF. So LF assumes you're using a POSIX compliant shell. It doesn't even work properly if you're using something like Fish, which changes some things up to do some supposedly better ways to do shell programming, I guess. And the problem with this is that you're going to just completely break all legacy scripts if you were to ever switch to using Python. And while this may not seem like a problem, it is a problem for anyone who uses any of the little scripts they find on GitHub, because as the point I brought up before was, if you rely on a POSIX compliant shell being there, then if it's not there, you're just going to break everything. And all of these old scripts, some of them are going to get updated. Like, some of the popular ones will get updated, but anything that people aren't really using that often isn't going to get updated. And I, for one, don't really want to go back and have to modify the source code of some random script that I want to use just because we decided to switch over to a Python shell. But if you are the weird kind of person who does want to use a Python shell for everything, then you do have the option of using something like Conch. That is actually, I'll bring it up. So this is Conch. If you are the weird kind of person who does want to use a Python-powered shell, this is available. I don't really know how it works myself, but basically Conch is a Python-powered cross-platform Unix-gazing shell language and prompt command. I don't really know how it's a prompt command, but sure. The language is a superset of Python 3.5 plus with additional shell primitives that are used to from Bash and IPython. I don't know what that sentence means. I think that are used and from Bash and IPython is what that's supposed to say. It works on all major systems like Linux, Mac OS X, and Windows. Conch is meant for the daily use of experts and novices alike. I don't really see novices using it, but if you're some weird person who just doesn't like Bash anymore for whatever reason, then this is available, and it's a Python shell thingy that you can use. Rich in history, doesn't have Bash ticked. Alright then, sane language. This is just someone who doesn't feel like learning Bash or Z shell. Doesn't matter. Anyway, where was I? So, right, my overall point was that you can do everything that you want to do with Python. Like, you can invoke really popular programs. You can invoke even less popular programs by just running external programs. I'm pretty sure. If there's not a library to invoke external programs, tell me, but I can't imagine that doesn't exist. And my overall point is that it's just generally more work to do everything in Python, because yes, you're going to have really complicated shell scripts to do stuff, even if they're just really complicated one-liners. Like, you're gonna have this sed command with like a bunch of different things in it, like I've done myself. Like, I've got a sed command for HTML encoding, and it's a mess, but it's one line, and I don't ever have to modify it. If you're going to do the same thing in Python, you're probably going to have to do that over a bunch of different lines, and you're going to have to, because Python's sort of an object-oriented language, you're going to have to run all these object functions, and it's just going to be far more heftier than just writing in a shell. If you do want to do stuff in Python because it's easier to modify, then I understand that, but most of my scripts, at least, are just quick and dirty scripts that I knocked up to just get some random thing done. Like, I want to, I don't know, make a directory, or I want to make, that's a bad example. I want to make a script, basically. So I'll generate a file, I'll make it executable, and I'll put it in my scripts folder. That's one of my random scripts, and that's like 2-3 lines of shell script. You could probably do it in the same amount of lines in Python, so that might not be the best. But say you've got like this massive chain where you're ending things together. If you're going to do that in Python, you're going to have to do that over a bunch of lines. Maybe it'll be more readable, but I don't really see any benefit in doing that, especially because once you write it once, you're probably never going to change it. So the modifiability completely goes out the window there. So ultimately, I'm not saying don't use Python or don't use Conch to manage your system. If you want to, go right ahead. You're completely free to do so. I'm not going to stop you. No one's going to stop you. Actually, some people are going to try to, but screw them. You have such an open system, you can do whatever you want. So you can even use a shell that's not POSIX compliant, like Fish if you want to. Whatever you want to use to manage your system, go right ahead. But what I'm saying is that if you're going to use something that isn't POSIX compliant and you're going to use something maybe like Python, it might end up being far more work than you'd initially anticipated, especially because you might break a lot of programs that assume POSIX compliant shells, or even just writing basic scripts. They're probably going to be far more work than you think they're going to be. So I think that's pretty much everything for this video. I was initially planning to actually read through some of the comments, but I recorded that and it didn't really feel like a very good video, so I decided to completely remake the video, and I'm much more happy with this one. So if you like this video, remember to smash that like button and leave me a comment down below letting me know what you think. And if you're new to the channel, remember to subscribe because it'll really help the channel out. Also, ding that bell because you might get updates, but YouTube can't be trusted to actually push them to anyone. So also go follow my Twitter and my Mastodon and you'll probably get updates there. Also, my Discord will have updates on them. That will be in the description down below, so go check that out. I'm in there most of the time, or if I'm not, just ping me if you want to talk and I'll probably respond at some point. So up on that corner, I'll have the playlist that this video is in, so go check that out if you want to see other videos like this. I don't think I have a playlist for it at this point, so I'm not sure what it's going to go in, but I'll work that out. Maybe I'll make like a Linux discussions playlist or something, I don't know. So I think that's pretty much everything for me, and I'm out.